Hi, welcome to the next video in the baby registry series. In this one, I'll be talking about containers for a baby. And by containers, I mean something to keep the baby in a safe place. So let's start with a baby carrier. These can be typically used from day one, but it does depend on your baby's weight. I definitely recommend that you register for a couple of these in different styles. So the first one I want to talk about is a wrap carrier. The one I received is from Baby Katan, and it's like a hybrid wrap carrier. Usually wrap carriers are like this long piece of stretchy fabric that you like wrap around your body somehow. And there are videos out there that make it look pretty easy, but the Baby Katan that I have is even easier to use. It's like two infinity scarves linked together. Basically you like put it over your head and then you put the baby in, and then you tie a third piece of fabric around your waist and get all nice and snug. And I used this one a lot when Theo was little. We were nice and snug together. I used this one with him facing out and with him facing in. The other kind of carrier that I received is from Lillababy. This one is completely the opposite from the Baby Katan. It's very structured. It comes with multiple buckles. It is bulkier than most carriers, I think, but that's because of the extra padding like on the shoulders and around the waist. And that's great when you're wearing baby for an extended amount of time, and it's definitely very, very ergonomic. I also received a ring sling type of carrier. I never used this one as I felt overwhelmed by learning how to use it, and my friend tried to teach me a couple times because she loved it. Her son was born a few months before mine and she did use it a lot. I just couldn't get the hang of it, had already learned how to use the other two that I just mentioned. I also purchased on my own one from Happy Baby, and I love this carrier. I feel like it's somewhere between the Baby Katan and the Lillababy. It's lightweight, it's portable, it's very comfy, but it is very pricey. I'll include a link below so you can check them out. I found one on Amazon that I think might be a pretty good dupe, and I probably would have purchased it if I knew about it when I was doing my research. So whatever kind of carrier you decide on, I highly recommend that you practice putting it on and taking it off, and maybe use a doll or a teddy bear as a stand-in for the baby. I didn't do this, and I was very intimidated to use my carriers in the beginning. After Theo came, I practiced at home with the help of my husband, and eventually I was able to wear them confidently, with Theo in them, of course. Alright, so the last item in terms of carriers, I 1000% recommend that you register for a hip carrier. The most popular one out there is a Tush Baby, but I have the dupe, which I think costs like $30 to $50 less, and it's works just the same. And I love this for when I'm taking him to an appointment or to the park, because it also kind of acts like a fanny pack, but I also wear it a lot around the house, and especially I wear it when Theo has days where he's a little bit more clingy and he wants to be carried. This thing has saved my arms, it has saved my back, especially as Theo has gotten bigger and heavier. It's just been amazing. And certainly the Tush Baby, it looks really nice, especially when I see them on other parents, but for me, I just needed this thing to work. Alright, so the next item I highly recommend you add to your registry, especially if you're going to be traveling with your baby, is a bouncer. When I was building my registry, this was not even on my radar. I'm very glad that I got one as a hand-me-down from my cousin. So a bouncer is like a slanted chair that you put baby into, and then with baby's motions, or like with your hand or your foot, the chair bounces slightly. I can't tell you how many times we used this thing from when Theo was very little up until he outgrew it, and I was easily able to carry this thing from room to room, and it was just great when I needed to do things like take a shower or make dinner. We also used it a lot when we would be eating dinner. One of us would take turn bouncing it with our foot, and Theo happily would just watch us eat. And as far as travel, it folds down very nice and flat, so it hardly takes up any space in your vehicle. The one we got was from Baby Bjorn, but I found one that it's also way less expensive, and it seems to have the exact same features as a Baby Bjorn, so your choice on that one. But definitely get an extra cover or two in case there are accidents. They are machine washable. Alright, so up next is a baby swing, and I can't necessarily say that this one is a must-have for your registry. My friend's son and mine, they both seemed indifferent about it, and I think my son was actually not a fan of it. Nonetheless, I've also heard from other friends that the swing was clutch for their baby. The one I got also as a hand-me-down was the Mamaroo, but I found one that is much less expensive and it essentially seems to do the same things. All right, so for tummy time, you can register for a baby play gym, but it's definitely not required. Some things to look out for, in my opinion, are a mat with bright colors and patterns, toys that hang with linking rings, a mirror, and a pillow that can be used for propping up the baby. And a colorful mat is good for holding baby's interests because the colors are stimulating, and the rings are very useful for other things, like you can link them together and your baby can play with that. We used a couple to be able to tie his like car seat toy across the bar instead of hanging from the bar, and you could even use them to tie to the corners of those muslin blankets and then use that as a drape. So you can DIY this particular item. If you have a quilt or a blanket, those can be used as a mat. My mom found this amazing quilt at Goodwill. We started using that exclusively because Theo loved looking at it when he did his tummy time. His physical therapist also suggested rolling up a towel and using that to like prop him up during tummy time. So all you would really need is like a plastic mirror, which you might be able to find one like at the Dollar Tree or any other dollar store or even a craft store. While I do recommend registering for an activity center, it does come with some caveats. An activity center is a table and there's a hole in the middle and then toys along the perimeter, and then you put the baby into that hole and the baby's like in a seat, and underneath is a platform for baby's feet to rest on, and then the baby can rotate around the table by using their feet and they can play with all the toys. I love the one that we got. The toys can be moved around or just taken off altogether, and then the platform can be used to cover the hole, and then it converts to a table, and now we use that as a table for him to either eat his snacks from or for him to play on. The reason I have some caveats with this is because both Theo's physical therapist and occupational therapist aren't the biggest fans of activity centers, but when they found out we were using it and probably not going to stop, they highly recommended that we raise the platform so that way his feet aren't like dangling, they're actually like sitting flat on top of the platform. And this was to prevent him from like kind of getting used to tiptoeing. But the other reason they didn't like it was the way that he was positioned in the seat. His body leans forward and it was resting on the table. So it's not a natural position when babies start to learn to walk. Finally, they also recommended that we wait as long as possible to use it, like I think no earlier than 5 months, and also to limit the use to something like 10 minutes each time he was in it. All right, so this next item is a little bit tricky in terms of whether or not I recommend it, and that would be a baby lounger. So you might know them by the name brand DockATot. So there was some rule that went into effect in 2022, and I don't believe they're selling their lounger anymore, at least not the infant version. However, there's like a million dupes for the DockATot on Amazon. I got a DockATot as a hand-me-down, and I was actually able to register for new covers for it. And I feel like my son didn't like it at first, but it did come in handy at times, especially like when we took him out of the bath. I would lay his towel on top of the DockATot, and then I would take him out and put him on top of the towel and wrap him up. So that was really, really convenient. We sometimes also used it for tummy time by using the edges to like prop him up. My friend got one from Amazon and she used it for co-sleeping and she said it worked pretty well. So is it necessary? It's hard to say. It's something different to put your baby into. So this one's really going to depend on your needs and wants. Okay, we've come to the final item, and that would be a seat. So typically seats are advertised as helping baby to learn to sit independently. Years ago, the Bumbo was probably the most popular one out there, but that one has fallen out of favor, especially by physical therapists. Supposedly that one doesn't put baby in the correct position for learning to sit up. These days, there's a couple that are recommended. The one I got, which was also a hand-me-down, was from Play School, and it's just a soft seat with like a rigid base. It does fold down, but I would say it's not the most travel friendly. We did use it several times, and I'm pretty sure my son had to get used to it because he didn't like it at first. Again, this one is one of those that, in my opinion, is not required for your registry, but might be nice to have. So a couple of items we were told to stay away from but are still being sold are these like doorway bouncer things and a walker that the baby goes into. We were told that besides being actually dangerous. They potentially hinder developing the ability to walk properly. All right, so to close this video, I do want to address a couple of things. And again, keep in mind, this is based on my experience. Some of these containers have drawbacks. The ones that I mentioned where baby is going to be on their back could potentially increase the likelihood of developing plagiocephaly. You might otherwise know that as a flat spot on the back of their head. Now, my son wore a helmet for almost a year because of craniosynostosis, so I got to speak a lot with the therapists there, and this is why tummy time is so important, and also why baby wearing is also really recommended. Also, I'm pretty sure a lot of the items I mentioned, except the Play Gym, they come with like a million warnings on them. A couple that come to mind are like making sure that baby is positioned correctly when you're wearing them so that you avoid hip dysplasia and so that their breathing is not obstructed. Or another one I saw a lot is to make sure that you're using the baby seat and the bouncer only on the ground. So please be aware of the inherent dangers that these things can carry. In general, these items are considered safe when used properly and really can have a useful and practical place in your home, as well as making your life as a new parent a little bit easier. Alright, so that's where I'm gonna leave this video. If you feel like I left something out, or if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!